more toxic content in the national education policy. If it is allowed, India will be converted into a fascist state. It is a national issue. It is a federal issue. It is a secular issue. It is a democratic issue. First of all, I congratulate All India Save Education Committee for having consistently organizing movement to mobilize public support against the disastrous National Education Policy 2020. I thank them for having given me the opportunity to share my opinion on certain aspects of the National Education Policy. For the sake of brevity, I will confine myself to a few points which I consider very important, because the pandemic effects will last for a few months or a few years, but the effect of this new education policy 2020 is likely to prolong further and further. That till I fear that this new education policy, National Education Policy 2020, will wreck the very spirit and letter of the Constitution of India. We feel that still India is a democratic country. We have a democratic constitution. In a democracy, everyone, every organization has a right to dissent, has a right to protest, and further has a right to resist, leading to rejection of the particular policy. We are exercising our democratic rights in dissenting, protesting, and resisting the national education policy. There are several points upon which we express our criticism, our opposition to this national education policy. There are very many points, but I will concentrate on a few for the sake of brevity. Our Republican Constitution originally listed education in the state list. So it is up to the states to evolve an education policy. As a welfare government, the union government can do something to coordinate, to assist, and to suggest certain reforms in the education. All the commissions which were constituted since our independence hence had made only recommendations. They never made dictations. But this is the only policy which is not bothered about recommendations, which imposes its will as a policy to be adopted by every state. This goes against the very spirit of the Constitution. Absolute centralization of education. Absolute centralization. Not only educational institutions, educational apparatus, the whole educational apparatus is being centralized. Today in the Hindu, you could have seen a news. Anbil Poyyamudi, the school education minister, gives a statement to the press stating that one joint director of school education is being transferred because, with utter disregard to the state's opposition to the new education policy, he circulates a message from the central ministry to inviting application from the teachers for a training course in a cultural program. The central government or union government can now directly invite state teachers, the teachers who were funded by the state government, to get trained themselves in a particular cultural program. This is one thing. Though, hence, it goes against the constitutional federalism. And then it goes against the cultural pluralism. The entire national education policy is meant to corporatize the education and to communalize the education. Corporatization, communalizations are the two aspects of the new education policy. Under the new scheme, education becomes expensive and education is controlled by the center, union government. The state education departments are expected to be auxiliary bodies of the union government. This is a very dangerous trend. It goes against the pluralism, cultural pluralism, linguistic pluralism of the Indian setup. They are emphasizing more on quality and cultural understanding of India. In their way, they are dictating to all the states what is to be considered as Indian culture. There is no scope for the culture, the acceptance of cultures of the regions, of the languages, of the religions. They try to make everything subordinated to the Sanskrit oriented, the Brahminical culture. And they describe this as accepting the pluralism of India. Pluralism is based on equality. Equality cannot be confined to equality among individuals. Equality goes beyond that. Equality among societies, equality among states, equality among religions. So the equality is to be extended to various fields. Here, that equality is subverted by this new education policy. As the distinguished historians Irfan Habib and Romila Thapar had already given detailed description of what they are doing in the Indian history. Now even the syllabus is dictated by the central government. What to be taught in the classrooms are decided by the bureaucrats. Absolute centralization leads to absolute bureaucratization of education system. There is no room for the educators, the scholars, the teachers to have an effective role in the policy making. They are made instruments. They had no say in the institutions. The universities lose their autonomy. They can no longer decide the curriculum. They can no longer decide the syllabus. They are all decided by a bureaucratic body, UGC now. So if they can do the syllabus making and curriculum making, what is the use of, what is the relevance of the state universities, state education departments? Is it granting autonomy or usurping the state's rights by the bureaucrats of the central agencies? So on this count, I feel that we have to be very vociferous in protesting and resisting and even rejecting the national education policy. Today, this day and this time, the governor of Tamil Nadu, as Chancellor of Universities of Tamil Nadu, is convening a meeting of the Vice Chancellors. What is his role? How can he convene a meeting of the Vice Chancellors? The Chancellor's role or the Governor's role is a de jure role, ornamentation. They are not de facto authorities, they are de jure authorities. As the President of India is to be considered, the President of India is a de jure authority. He cannot dictate anything to the central ministers, central ministries. He cannot call individual secretaries of the departments for consultation or for clarification. Can the President of India Govind call for a meeting of the department secretaries of the union government? Can he ask for the statements from them? What the President of India could not do, the governors of states are doing it now. They are inviting reports from the state departments. They are convening meeting of vice chancellors. Is it autonomy? Is it academic autonomy? He is dictating what to be done. The vice chancellors are now under the control of dual authorities, the state government and the union government. The union government controls through the governor. Knowing very well the depth of resources in the state government, the vice chancellors are mostly in favor of the central intervention. Even today, the Madras University had introduced courses, online courses. All the courses were online courses. And who gave this idea? Did the Academic Council of the Madras University suggest these online courses? No. He receives instructions from the central ministry and he introduces departments. Unfortunately, till date, the state government has not reacted to it. We hope that the state government would react appropriately, adequately in the coming days. So they are subverting the constitution, they are subverting federalism, they are subverting cultural pluralism in India. Without the state's autonomy is granted, acknowledged, the cultural pluralism will have no meaning. The states represent particular segments of society and it represents linguistic interest, cultural interest. If the state's rights are being eroded by the new education policies, what would happen to the federal structure of India? Even the union, the word union will be eroded. It will be removed by an ordinance by the central government. Hereafter, India will be a unitary state. India will not be a union of states. So this conversion from transformation from federalism to unitarianism is more explicit in the field of education. And the education, educated people are involved. Educated people should have the awareness, should have the courage to resist what is evil, what is anti-federal, what is anti-constitution. If the educated people fail the society, then the history will not forgive them. The educated audience, they are privileged ones. In a country like India, not all the people are educated. Not all the people are holding postgraduate degrees. So such educated people are supposed to be the conscience keepers of the society. If the educated people, their representatives, and in various positions, fail to react to this anti-constitutional national education policy 2020, then they will be considered as accomplices in a constitutional crime. So we expect this education committee to carry on this message. Are we going to seek for amendments to the national education policy, or are we going to seek for the rejection of the policy? It is up to us to decide. Are we going to be content with a few changes? Some people say that we oppose only the language policy. Some people say that we oppose the entrance test. But the national education policy has more toxic content in it than these two issues. These two issues are very important. I don't reject it. I don't deny that. But there are more toxic content in the national education policy. If it is allowed, India will be converted into a fascist state, a unitary state, fascist state, a majoritarian state, and that will be wrecking our interest in future. So this resistance to national education policy in an organized way by this committee is not mere on an educational issue. It is a national issue. It is a federal issue. It is a secular issue. It is a democratic issue. So in order to save the state, save the democratic, secular, federal content of the state, we'll have to rise up and see that this disastrous policy is rejected once for all. Thank you for the opportunity.
உன் கடவுளை விட, உன் சாஸ்திரத்தை விட, உன் முன்னோரை விட, உன் வெங்காயம் வழக்கமாத்தை விட, உன் அறிவு பெருசு, அதை சிந்தி.